No country on Earth has been fought over more consistently, for longer, by more different civilizations than this one. On your left, Europe. On your right, Asia. Turkey has always been the place where the world's most important decisions were made. This land is not simply a place. It is a position, the most consequential geographic position in the ancient world, and one of the most important in the modern one. Turkey is where the world was shaped, and it is still being shaped. Before we get to this incredible country, there are 3 facts you need to hear, because they'll completely change how you see Turkey. And some of them are so surprising, most people don't know they exist. As we prepare to dive into these hidden gems, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Worldly. Fact 1. The oldest temple on Earth. In 1994, a Kurdish shepherd noticed something unusual in a field near the town of Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey. Stones. Shaped stones, partially exposed, arranged in patterns that didn't look natural. What archaeologists uncovered over the following decades rewrote the timeline of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old. This is not a habitation site. There are no cooking hearths, no domestic refuse, no evidence of permanent settlement. Göbekli Tepe is a sanctuary, a purpose-built ritual space whose construction required the organized labor of hundreds of people. The coordination of a social system sophisticated enough to plan and execute a major construction project, and a belief system complex enough to motivate that effort. All of this before agriculture, before pottery, before the first city anywhere on Earth. The conventional understanding of civilization, that agriculture came first, then settlement, then religion, may be exactly backwards. Göbekli Tepe suggests that belief came first, that humans built the temple before the city, that the need for meaning preceded the need for bread. The site has not been fully excavated. Current estimates suggest that only a fraction of the total complex has been uncovered, that Göbekli Tepe extends far beyond what archaeology has yet revealed. What is already visible is enough to place Turkey at the origin of the human story, not in the middle of it, at the beginning. Fact 2. The strait that decides wars. The Bosphorus Strait is, at its narrowest, approximately 700 meters wide, 700 meters between Europe and Asia. Throughout history, whoever controlled those 700 meters controlled the movement of armies, grain, timber, gold, and oil between the world's most consequential bodies of water. The Greeks established colonies at its entrance. The Persians crossed it on a bridge of boats. The Byzantines built their walls to include it. The Ottomans seized it in 1453, in what remains one of the most consequential military events in world history. Today, the Bosphorus carries more ship traffic than the Suez Canal, approximately 45,000 vessels per year, navigating a passage whose narrowest sections require precise pilotage and whose strategic importance has not diminished in 3,000 years of contested history. The Montreux Convention of 1936 governs access to the strait, a legal framework that determines which nation's naval vessels can pass through, in what numbers, and under what conditions. Turkey's signature on that convention gives it authority over one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. Geography assigned that authority. History confirmed it. Fact 3. The empire that connected the world. At its maximum extent in the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire covered approximately 5.5 million square kilometers, stretching from the gates of Vienna in the northwest to the Persian Gulf in the southeast, from the Crimea in the north to the borders of Morocco in the west. It controlled Mecca and Medina. It held the trade routes between Europe and Asia. Its fleet dominated the Mediterranean and the Red Sea simultaneously. For over 6 centuries, the Ottoman Empire was one of the most consequential political entities on Earth, a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state whose administrative sophistication, architectural achievements, and cultural production shaped every territory it governed. The empire's collapse following World War I produced the modern map of the Middle East, borders drawn by European powers over Ottoman territory that had been administered as a coherent unit for centuries. The instability of those borders, drawn without sufficient regard for the ethnic, religious, and tribal realities beneath them, is still producing consequences a century later. Modern Turkey is the Ottoman Empire's successor state. It carries that legacy with the specific complexity of a country that knows it was once the center of the world and is deciding, in real time, what that means for what it becomes next. Where continents and power meet. Istanbul is the only city in the world that occupies 2 continents simultaneously. The European side and the Asian side of the Bosphorus are both Istanbul, connected by bridges, by ferries, by the daily movement of a metropolitan population of over 15 million people who cross between continents as casually as crossing a river. But the casualness is recent, the significance is ancient. The Hagia Sophia was built by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian in 537 CE, the largest cathedral in the world for nearly 1,000 years, its central dome a feat of engineering so advanced that the architectural principles it employed were not fully understood by subsequent builders for centuries. For 900 years it was a Christian cathedral. In 1453, Mehmed II entered through its doors after the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople, circled the interior in silence, and ordered the mosaics covered and the building converted to a mosque. For 500 years, it was an Islamic mosque. In 1934, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk converted it to a museum. In 2020, the Turkish government converted it back to a mosque. No building on Earth contains more layers of religious and political history within a single structure. The mosaics and the calligraphy coexist in its interior. The gold Byzantine Christs and Virgins, now partially revealed, partially covered, depending on the current balance of Turkish politics. The building's status as contested ground made visible in its own ceiling. The Blue Mosque, Sultan Ahmed Mosque, built between 1609 and 1616, faces the Hagia Sophia across the former Byzantine hippodrome, the two structures in a visual dialogue across 14 centuries of Istanbul's history. The hippodrome between them, where Byzantine chariot races were held before crowds of 100,000, is now a public square. The obelisk brought from Egypt by Constantine stands at its center, as it has stood for 1600 years. From the Bosphorus itself, Istanbul reveals its essential character. The European shore rises in layers: Byzantine walls, Ottoman mosques, colonial-era European architecture, and contemporary glass towers, each era visible from the water in a vertical compression of 12 centuries of continuous significance. Istanbul does not have a past. It has a present that contains everything that preceded it, simultaneously, in the same city, under the same sky. The first civilization. The question Göbekli Tepe poses has not been fully answered. Why here? Why did people who had not yet developed agriculture, who moved with the seasons, who had no permanent settlements, no writing, no metal tools, choose this specific hilltop in southeastern Anatolia to build a structure of this scale and this symbolic complexity? The answer, if it exists, is somewhere in the pillars. The T-shaped limestone pillars of Göbekli Tepe rise up to 6 meters, their weight measured in tons, their surfaces carved with animals and abstract symbols whose specific meanings remain undeciphered. The carving is not crude. It is deliberate and skilled, the work of people who had been making representational images for long enough to develop a shared visual language. The oldest pillar at Göbekli Tepe is approximately 11,600 years old. The oldest pyramid is 4,500. The distance between them is longer than the distance between the pyramid and us. The enclosures at Göbekli Tepe were deliberately buried. At some point between 8 and 10,000 years ago, the chronology is still being refined, each enclosure was intentionally backfilled with thousands of tons of material, flint tools, animal bones, and sediment that preserved the pillars beneath perfectly. The burial was not abandonment, it was a ritual act. Someone chose to bury this place. The implications ripple outward from this hilltop into everything that came after. If organized religion preceded organized agriculture, if the need for communal ritual was the force that gathered dispersed hunter-gatherer bands into cooperative groups large enough to build together, then Göbekli Tepe is not simply the oldest temple. It may be the reason cities exist at all. A world carved by time. Before the sun rises over Cappadocia, the balloons are already ascending. On a clear morning in the Göreme Valley, as many as 150 hot air balloons carry passengers above a landscape that took 3 million years to produce. Volcanic eruptions depositing ash, wind and water, carving it into the specific forms that make Cappadocia one of the most visually extraordinary landscapes on Earth. The fairy chimneys, soft volcanic tuff columns topped with harder basalt caps that protected the material below from erosion while the surrounding rock was worn away, appear across the Cappadocian valleys in arrangements that seem designed rather than geological. Some are single columns, some cluster in groups, some rise from valley walls as if growing from them. The rock is soft enough to carve with hand tools. The people who understood this, the early Christian communities who sheltered in Cappadocia during periods of Roman persecution, carved their world directly into it. The Göreme Open Air Museum contains an extraordinary concentration of rock-cut churches, 10th and 11th century chapels carved into the tuff, their interiors covered in Byzantine frescoes of quality and preservation that the surrounding rock has maintained across 1,000 years of exposure. The dark church, Karanlık Kilise, is named for its limited windows. The limitation that kept the light out also kept the pigments vibrant. The faces of the saints painted here in the 11th century are still recognizable. Beneath Cappadocia's surface, another civilization carved downward rather than outward. The underground cities of Cappadocia, Derinkuyu descending 18 levels below ground, capable of sheltering tens of thousands of people, were carved as refuges during periods of invasion, their ventilation shafts, water wells, millstone doors, and livestock areas representing a complete underground civilization that could sustain itself for months without surface contact. The deepest levels are approximately 85 meters below the ground. The people who carved them did so by hand, in darkness, over generations. The power of the ancient world. At its peak, Ephesus had a population of approximately 200,000 people. It was the second largest city in the Roman Empire, after Rome itself, a port city at the mouth of the Casta River, whose commercial and religious significance drew pilgrims, merchants, philosophers, and emperors from across the Mediterranean world. Walking its main colonnaded street today, the scale of what was built here becomes comprehensible in a way that no photograph prepares for. The Library of Celsus, built in the 2nd century CE as a monument to the Roman governor Gaius Julius Celsus Polymianus, held approximately 12,000 scrolls in its collection, the third largest library in the ancient world after Alexandria and Pergamon. Its two-story facade, restored in the 20th century from its original fallen stones, stands as the most photographed structure in Turkey. 4 female figures in their niches representing wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, and valor, the virtues that a Roman governor wished to have associated with his memorial. The Great Theatre of Ephesus seated 25,000 people. The Apostle Paul preached here, according to the Acts of the Apostles, and the crowd that assembled to hear him represented the specific mix of Jewish merchants, Greek philosophers, Roman administrators, and Anatolian locals that made Ephesus the most cosmopolitan city in the ancient East Mediterranean. Paul's presence in Ephesus triggered a riot, documented in Acts 19, when silversmiths who made images of the goddess Artemis, whose temple was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, mobilized against his preaching and filled this theatre with 2 hours of chanting in her name. Of the Temple of Artemis, 4 times larger than the Parthenon, considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, 1 column remains. 1. The rest was dismantled for building material across centuries. The single column stands in a field of marshy ground, reconstructed from fragments found on the site, marking the location of something that the ancient world considered miraculous. Myth, war, and strategic control. Troy was real. The argument that Homer's Iliad described an actual city, an actual siege, and an actual war was considered mythology until Heinrich Schliemann's excavations in the 1870s revealed a city. 9 cities, in fact, built on top of each other across 3,000 years, precisely where Homer placed it. The walls he found were genuine. The fire damage to the level corresponding to Homer's Troy was genuine. Someone destroyed this city violently at approximately the right time. Troy's location was not chosen for beauty. The city sits on a ridge overlooking the southern entrance to the Dardanelles, the strait connecting the Aegean to the Sea of Marmara and the Black Sea beyond. Control of Troy meant control of the passage through which all Black Sea trade moved to the Mediterranean world. The Trojan War, whatever its mythological elaboration, was almost certainly a war about trade route control. The Greeks did not sail for 10 years across the Aegean for the face of Helen. They came for what Troy's position was worth. Homer gave the war its story. The story gave Troy an immortality that its commercial importance, however significant, would not have produced alone. Cities that control trade routes are forgotten when the trade routes change. Cities that inspire the Iliad are discussed 3,000 years later. The Dardanelles below Troy, the same strait the Trojans taxed, the same water Xerxes crossed on his way to invade Greece, the same passage that the Allied forces fought for in the Gallipoli campaign of 1915 in one of the bloodiest military disasters of the First World War, is still among the most strategically watched waterways in the world. 3,000 years. The same strait, the same logic of control. Nature and the gateway to the underworld. The white terraces of Pamukkale cannot be fully processed as natural. The eye receives them and offers architectural explanations. Someone built these, someone shaped these, someone chose these cascading forms. Then the science arrives. Calcium carbonate, dissolved in the thermal water that rises from the geological fault below the hillside, precipitates as travertine wherever the water cools, building the terraces 1 millimeter at a time. The process continuous, the forms produced entirely by chemistry and gravity. The water is warm. It has been warm for at least 2,000 years, possibly longer. producing a thermal landscape that the ancient city of Hierapolis was built directly above. Its inhabitants, understanding that the water rising here was different, that the warmth it carried had medicinal properties, and that the steam rising from the fault below was something beyond the ordinary. Hierapolis was a healing city, a place where the sick came to bathe in the thermal waters, to die if that was the outcome, and to be buried in one of the largest ancient necropolises in Anatolia. The city's theatre, built in the 2nd century CE, seated 12,000. The necropolis outside the city walls contains thousands of tombs across multiple eras, the largest and most varied ancient burial ground in Turkey. At the edge of the Hierapolis temple complex, a small cave entrance was known in antiquity as the Plutonium, the gateway to the underworld, the entrance to the realm of Pluto, the god of death. The cave emits carbon dioxide at concentrations lethal to animals that approach it. In antiquity, priests who understood the gas and knew how to position themselves above it brought animals into the cave and emerged alive while the animals died, demonstrating divine power over death that was entirely explicable in modern chemistry and entirely convincing in ancient theology. The gate to the underworld was a ventilation problem. The priests just understood the ventilation better than anyone else. The Throne of Forgotten Gods. At the summit of Mount Nemrut, gods sit in ruins. The colossal statues built by Antiochus I of Commagene, the king of a small Hellenistic kingdom in southeastern Anatolia, ruling in the 1st century BCE, once stood 10 meters tall, their scale declaring the kingdom's ambition in stone at the highest point of his domain. The heads that remain, the bodies long since toppled by earthquakes, are extraordinary objects. Antiochus built his funerary sanctuary on Nemrut's summit in a deliberate synthesis of Eastern and Western theological traditions. The statues depicting gods from the Greek pantheon merged with their Persian equivalents, seated together on a single terrace in an act of religious diplomacy as audacious as it was unusual. Zeus and Ahura Mazda, Apollo and Mithra, Heracles and Artanius, two civilizations' gods merged into single forms, seated at 2,000 meters above the Euphrates Valley on a throne that time has slowly dismantled. The peak of Nemrut is not natural. Antiochus ordered a conical tumulus of crushed rock, approximately 50 meters high, constructed at the summit as his tomb. His body, according to inscriptions he left, was placed inside it. The tomb has never been found. The tumulus, the artificial mountain on the natural mountain, remains intact and unexcavated. Antiochus is still in there. At sunrise, the light reaches the stone faces at an angle that makes them appear to wake. The shadows retreat. The features emerge. For a few minutes, the broken statues of a forgotten king's forgotten gods look present rather than ruined. Then the light levels, and they are ruins again. Beautiful, strange, and entirely real. Capital of the Hittite Empire. The Hittites are the forgotten superpower of the ancient world. Contemporary with New Kingdom Egypt, negotiating with Ramesses II as an equal, the Treaty of Kadesh, signed between the Hittites and Egypt in 1259 BCE, is the oldest surviving peace treaty in recorded history. The Hittite Empire at its peak controlled most of Anatolia and extended into the Levant. They were the first known users of iron weaponry in military applications. Their capital was here. Hattusa's walls, over 6 kilometers in total circumference, enclosed a city of temples, palaces, and administrative buildings on a series of ridges in central Anatolia. The Lion Gate is the most visually dramatic surviving element. 2 massive lions carved in high relief on either side of the main entrance, their mouths open, their posture asserting the power of what they protected. The stone is 4,000 years old. The lions are still convincing. The great temple of the storm god occupies the lower city, its foundations covering an area that archaeologists estimate held hundreds of priests, administrators, and functionaries serving the religious and economic functions that ancient Near Eastern temples performed simultaneously. Storage jars found in the temple's magazines, still in place, still recognizable after 3,000 years, held the grain, oil, and goods that the temple managed as the economic center of the city. The Hittites left written records, cuneiform tablets found at Hattusa in extraordinary numbers, covering administrative, diplomatic, religious, and legal matters in a detail that has allowed historians to reconstruct Hittite civilization with unusual precision, including their letters to Egypt, including the peace treaty, including the specific terms under which 2 superpowers agreed to stop fighting each other 3,250 years ago. faith built into the impossible. The monastery appears as an impossibility, a complex of chapels, cells, kitchens, and libraries built directly into the face of a vertical cliff, approximately 300 meters above a forested valley in the Pontic Mountains. A structure that seems to have been placed there by a force that did not consult the physical laws of construction. Sumela Monastery. Founded, according to tradition, in the 4th century CE, occupied continuously for over a millennium. The approach to Sumela is a 45-minute walk through temperate mountain forest, beech and fir on slopes that receive significant rainfall from the Black Sea, the vegetation dense and green in a way that feels more Caucasus than Anatolia. The monastery announces itself suddenly, visible through the trees from the path below. Its white plastered walls against the grey rock face producing a contrast visible from the valley floor. The main rock church at Sumela contains frescoes covering every surface. The ceiling, the walls, the apse. Painted across multiple periods, each layer of devotion added by generations of monks who understood that they were contributing to something that would outlast them. The earliest frescoes date to the 9th century. The latest were added in the 18th. 9 centuries of painted devotion on a cliff face in a mountain forest. Why here? The answer is the same answer that appears wherever extreme faith chooses extreme geography. The difficulty of the place is the point. A monastery accessible only to the determined, visible only to those willing to look, built only by those willing to climb, is a monastery that selects for commitment. Sumela endured because the place that sheltered it demanded too much of the wrong kind of visitor. The right kind of visitor is still coming. Where empires met the sea. The Turkish Mediterranean coast is a geography of arrivals. Every civilization that built ships and sought new territory eventually came here. Drawn by the specific combination of calm summer seas, natural harbors, fertile coastal plains, and the Taurus Mountains providing both timber for shipbuilding and a defensive backdrop for the settlements below. The Lycians arrived first among the major cultures. The Lycian civilization, occupying the southwestern coastal region of Anatolia for roughly a millennium before its absorption into larger empires, left its most distinctive mark in the form of tombs carved into coastal cliffs above the sea. At Myra and across the Dalyan River Valley, the cliff faces are honeycombed with funeral chambers whose facades imitate the wooden architecture of Lycian houses. The tombs designed to provide the dead with a dwelling that replicated their home while overlooking the sea they had navigated in life. The cliff tombs at Dalyan are visible from the river below, the facades carved 30 meters above the water, the rock orange and warm in the afternoon light. The tombs so numerous and so precisely made that the cliff appears to have been systematically colonized by a civilization of the dead. Antalya itself was founded in the 2nd century BCE by the Attalid king Attalus II, its harbour an act of deliberate planning, the city rising above it as the region's administrative centre through Roman, Byzantine, Seljuk and Ottoman periods. Hadrian's Gate, the triple-arched Roman entrance to the Old City, built in 130 CE to commemorate the emperor's visit, still stands in a state of remarkable preservation. The carved detail on its columns and arches visible after 19 centuries of Mediterranean weather. From the water, the Turkish Mediterranean coast tells its full story simultaneously. The cliff tombs above, the Roman harbour walls below, the Byzantine-era towers still standing at the water's edge, the Ottoman mosque behind them, the glass-fronted hotels of the modern tourism economy beside all of it. Every era chose this coastline for the same reasons. The light, the water, the position between east and west. The reasons have not changed. The coastline is still being chosen. No country on earth holds more of humanity's story in less space. 11,000 years of temples, empires, wars, and faith. Civilizations that shaped every civilization that came after them. Turkey is not where history happened. It is where history began. Subscribe to Worldly and continue the journey into the places that made the world.